around me to make me look amazing.
Well, I'm like in this lovely hybrid generation of like elder millennial Gen X, right on the cusp, where it's like, I love technology, but I'm also being like, I don't want to learn anything new.
Isn't it funny? It used to be people would talk about what sign are you? Oh, I'm a Sagittarius. I'm a Gemini. I'm a this. Now people are like, what generation are you? I need to know what I'm dealing with.
I know, right? I need to know how to code switch.
I love it. So welcome to another podcast of Act with Purpose. And we are so excited. Our very special guest this evening is going to be Dr. Janet McMordie. Yay, welcome. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
So first of all, we have to say congratulations to your accomplishment recently with your podcast, Second Act Actors. Just hit 30,000 downloads. That has got to be an amazing feeling to know that you're reaching people. People are interested in what you have to say and what your guests have to say and the conversations that you're starting. So how does that feel? Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's so neat. And I think, I kind of always make a joke whenever I post something about, oh, thank you for supporting my wee little passion project. But it truly was that and still is that. But I'm just so excited that people are listening and getting to hear the stories of my guests who are just so vulnerable and inspirational. And I love having people reach out to me saying, hey, I found your podcast. Oh, I listened to so-and-so's episode. I really could relate to them. And then I love passing that message on to the guest and saying, hey, I got feedback. They loved your episode. It's so thrilling. I love doing it. I love it. It's so fun.
And Janet, one of the things I want to congratulate you on, as well as the accomplishment, is that you are really reaching people in such a positive way. And in an industry where there's so much negativity, I think that what you're doing is just so special and needed and necessary. People are starving for information, and you're providing it in such a beautiful, authentic, and accessible way. So congratulations. And another little accomplishment in your wee little passion project, as you say, congratulations on your first laurels. You've been nominated for an award.
Yes, I got my first laurels, which didn't really know what they were, not coming from a film or television background, but always seeing these, little laurels on people's wonderful short films and indie films and stuff like that. And yeah, my podcast has been is an official selection for the TO, like Toronto Web Fest in September. So I'm thrilled to be a part of that. I don't know much about it yet. It just came out. The nomination just came out last week, but I'm really excited because it sounds like a lot of people who are involved, we kind of live in the same world, like the web series world, and we're podcasters and YouTube channelers and stuff. So I'm looking forward to meeting more people.
Well, I think that this is only the beginning for you in terms of opportunities, because the more every time I go past your page or see anything going on with Second Actors, I am telling you, there is a buzz and there's an excitement, and it seems like it's just a snowball effect. And more people are talking about you in particular, because you really are a wonderful host. You have a way of digging in and finding out what is important to the person who you're interviewing and what you think might be important to your audience. And you just navigate that so beautifully. So I have no doubt that this is just the tip of the iceberg for you. So just wanted to say congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me, what are you working on now? You have so many different things that you have your fingers in a lot of different pies. So what are you working on now? Do you have a big project?
Yes. So I am currently in rehearsals for a play that I'm in, a one-act play. It's called Planet of the Apps, and it's part of let me enunciate my words properly because I need to be on theater on the stage soon. I need to enunciate to the back of the room. Yeah, so I'm in a one-act play called Planet of the Apps that is part of the Simcoe County Theatre Festival up in Barrie, which is not that far away from Toronto, so you all should come up and see it. It's really not that far.
No
Uh,
excuses.
no excuses. I was part of the theater festival last year, and it was one of my first theatrical productions since high school, which was decades ago for me. So I'm really excited about this play. It's a two-hander, and I play at least 6 different parts, and I have a myriad of different accents and costumes. There may be a song involved, which I know you will appreciate, John, and I might be dancing
Ooh,
a little bit. This is
wow.
right? It's comedy, all of this stuff, which I used to say all these things are outside of my comfort zone, but I'm like, "No, no, like, I am now, like, this is my comfort zone. This is fun." It's basically me making a fool out of myself for an hour, and I'm so excited to show it off. It's going to be so fun. It's an original play written by a local, like, Simcoe County playwright who is just a riot. So it's going to be a
I
blast. So we're in the
love
thick of
that.
things. Yeah,
Fantastic. Well,
it's going to be fun.
congratulations.
Thank
And when
you.
are the dates?
So we open July 14th and we close on the 25th. So we have 6 shows on the weekends, so like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we're paired with another show. So when you come, you'll see 2 shows, so 2 one-act shows. And the show we're paired with was written by the playwright who I was in her play last year, and she's a phenomenal playwright named Megan. It's called Canoe Lake, and it's about Tom Thompson, one of the artists in the group of 7. So, a very kind of Canadiana story. So it's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it.
You know what? I think it's really important too to share our Canadian stories. So I'm
Mhm.
thrilled to see that these are things that are drawing attention and that you're involved in, because I know anything that
Mhm.
you bring your energy to is going to be a success. So I'm excited to
Thank
hear more
you.
about that. And we'll have to put some links on where we can get those tickets.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Got to plug it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm stepping into your former world, John. I have musical theater, and I'm like,
I
"Oh,
know,
Lord."
it's so crazy, right?
Mhm.
So it's so fun. I did you watch the Tony Awards?
Of course.
What
I
was your
loved
favorite
watching
moment?
it. Oh my gosh. So, okay, what did I see? No, wait, I didn't see, okay, shoot. I didn't see this year. I saw the one last year when which was the year that Ariana DeBose hosted? Was that this year?
I
You
think
can
it
edit all this.
I know we both look like we don't know it. I don't know. I This year, it was Brian Darcy James was nominated for Into the Woods, and he and I
Right.
performed together. I think on two occasions. I think he was in Camelot with me, and I think he was in Follies. I know he's definitely in Follies, but I'm
Mhm.
almost positive he was in Camelot as well. But in any case, a fantastic performer, really hardworking. And, Janet, one of the things that I love about watching you interview people is you always tap into what their joy is. And I feel like so many actors have forgotten the joy of
Mm.
acting,
Mm.
and they forgot their why they got into it. And when I see you interviewing people, you always have a way of bringing out that why, bringing out like that joy, why people are still striving for it. And yes, there's some really heavy moments, and there's some real big disappointments, and there's some terrible politics and things like that. But at the same time, we can't blame the art. The business part, that's what it is. But the art and the joy of acting is one of the things that I keep coming back to. And I just feel your positivity and how you always bring that out, and you bring out the joy, whether it's a casting director. I love the one with Kim Herden.
Mm.
She's one of my favorite people, period. But then just put you two together, and I was like, yes, this is like chocolate and peanut butter. You are the Reese's of.
Oh, that is the highest honor.
But no, it is important. I think the only way to, I talk a lot about mental health for actors and things like that, and you being in the medical with a medical background, I think it really is important to remember our joy, remember our why. So kind of, in that light, and I know you've talked about this before, but what was your why for getting back into it?
Oh, yeah. And I think, I could wax poetic about it for hours, but also I go, what was my why? Because exactly what you're saying, you kind of forget and you have to find that centering why all the time to bring yourself back. But for me, it was pretty situational.
Mhm.
Why? Because the pandemic hit and I was doing really quote unquote well in the world of medicine. I had, been a theater kid growing up and did the plays, did the choirs, I was a traveling theater company in high school and then, did the tunnel vision science degree focus that was, to be honest, extremely necessary to get to become a doctor. Like you have to just be like, I have my blinders on and I can't see anything else in the world except for this. Every so often I'm like, oh, my friends are off in India trying to find themselves and I'm in the library. But no, tunnel vision. And I did really well in medicine. I loved it. I still do love it. But it was just so busy, and then it was like a wall of the pandemic just went blammo, as it did what I think a ton of people, not just myself in healthcare and other healthcare professionals, but a lot of people. It was this kind of reawakening of, am I allowed to swear?
Yes.
Am I? Okay. Of like, what the hell are we doing?
Yes.
And for me, I was so exhausted. I was working shifts in to try and cover doctors who were sick, and is this all real and what is happening, and no one cares about us, and there was just a lot going on. And I remember so vividly the Second City in Toronto doing online like performances for healthcare workers because they were like, you need to laugh. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
please. And I saw them and it was just over Zoom. And I was like, that looks so fun. It looks so free. And they just like, they don't have a care in the world. They obviously do have cares in the world, but like they just are, it's just a feeling of freedom. And I was watching it on my screen. I was like, I want to learn how to do that. And I took an online Second City improv class and
Incredible.
and I felt that feeling again that I'd felt in high school of freedom and creativity, terror, but because of improv, but being like, oh my goodness, this is the creativity and the creative people that I really enjoy being around.
Yeah.
I love being around medical people, but when you are only around those people, it becomes too insular. And I was forgetting about the world around me. And I'd forgotten that how important it was to have a creative outlet and also a feeling of like freedom to play outside of an algorithm, because everything
Yeah.
everything in medicine is algorithms and flowcharts and very logical brain. And then I was finding it was slowly seeping into my medical career, and I was becoming, I would say, a better doctor, relating to my patients more, being less reactive when patients will be like, I don't want to do that. I want to try something else. Being more, okay, let's think outside the box. Let's think creatively. So, I'm rambling on and not really answering your question about what is my why. But I think the biggest why was like the why was missing. I
Mm.
had no why. And then it came back and I said, my why is freedom, is needing that creativity, needing the people that I was meeting who were pushing me and excited and exciting
Mhm.
and broadening my world and meeting people like you and just who I never would have met if it wasn't for the pandemic. That was the wall that hit me in the first place.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear you talk about when you're surrounded by medical people that you felt kind of insular and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. And because I feel the same thing when I'm around only actors.
Mm.
And I feel like
Mhm.
it's the same kind of idea. And so I really enjoy meeting my clients who have really interesting jobs and talking about something outside because, and I've told this to actors a million times, don't just be an actor. You have to have some hobbies. You have to have a life to pull from to be able to be a better actor. But if you're only
Mhm.
focused on just taking acting classes, just going to theater, just seeing movies, you're not living a life of your own, right?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so I relate to what you're saying on the other side. And it's interesting to hear you crave that. And I, on this side, am craving those more cerebral sorts of
Mm.
conversations and talking about science and other things other than just acting and technique
Mm.
and what film and what TV show you're watching and all those things. So that's really pretty amazing. What was your biggest fear coming back?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the biggest fear was it's not like, "Oh, I'm not gonna be successful or I'm not gonna hit milestones," or something like that. I think my biggest fear was that I would lose the enthusiasm
Hmm.
because and I don't know if it's a fear, but I just know myself and how, like, I look back at my life and I love the learning of the thing. I love it. Like, I'm one of those people who I wanna try everything, and it's so exciting. But then, it's like, "Oh, I'm not immediately good at this." Get rid of it. Where where for acting so I think I was fearful that that was what it was gonna be like, but when I looked back at my life, like, acting was the only thing that I never gave up when I was young, and I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I hope I don't lose that fire and enthusiasm for something that is so just life, right, in this community." So, I don't know if it was an actual fear of that I had myself, but it was like, "Oh, no, please don't get that feeling of, ah." But it didn't happen. It hasn't happened, and I think it's because there's no, like, "Here's how you know you're good." Right? Here's the letter grade. Here are the badges you get. Here are the Girl Scout badges, right? Here is the level. You're now in bronze medallion acting. No, like it doesn't exist because like you're just continuously learning stuff as opposed to I'll use medicine as an analogy, right? You move up each level until you
Hmm.
finish your exam and then bing, you're a doctor. And then you're like, I'm at the top of the mountain. Now where do I go? Where acting, there's just not that. It's just a
Mhm.
continuous learning of the thing, which
Yeah.
I love. So far it hasn't happened, but it's still an underlying fear that I think is constantly there being like, and I think also because it is such an up and down industry where there is no control and I kind of we all have those bad days where you're like, I hate this. I don't like this. I get an audition and I'm like, again. I'm like, okay. But then I get worried, like, oh, am I starting to not like it? Then I'm like, no, no. Once I get into the groove, I'm like, yes, here it is. Here's the fire. Here's the creativity. Here's the passion that is there. Politics about acting aside, which will always be there.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Who's your biggest supporter?
Mm. Oh my gosh, there's so many. I'd probably say my, like, first supporter, the first one who didn't look at me like I was a crazy person when I said, "I wanna do acting," which was literally everyone, right? They're like, "I'm sorry, what?" Was my friend Stacy. She was the director of the play I was in last year, and I was, like, feeling all this antsy energy, right? Like, something's wrong, and, I was like, "Maybe I need to do more acting." She's like, "Yeah, you should." I was like, "What? I should?" Nobody answers that when you say, "I wanna be an actor," right? And she was the first one to do that. So, I mean, that and so she was, like, the first social person, I'd say, within my friend circle to say, "Yeah, go for it."
Amazing.
And there are people who, like, I think about Oh, the first casting director, whoever cast me in anything, was Carly Granofsky and Stephen Mann. And then there's a production company up in Sault Ste. Marie, 180 Sisterhood, who have
Yes.
they've like Trish and Rebecca who've cast me. They cast me in
Love
my
them.
first ACTRA role, and they've cast me in other things since. And they're constantly like thinking about me for roles. And that
Yes.
just makes me sob with joy. Like it's just there's that feeling of everyone always says you always just have to have that one person who believes in you. And those are those people who you're like, you took a chance on me in a world that rarely happens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, they professionally they are the people who are my biggest supporters. I mean, I've got
I
tons of all
love
my friends
it.
my friends who are readers, my friend Madeline, my friend Kirill, like they just are enthusiastic people. My
Madeline
agent,
DeCorso.
Maya, Madeline DeCorso, yes,
Yes. Okay. And Trish and
who are just like
Rebecca and
and
Carly
Tristan
and Samantha.
Rebecca.
You're talking about all the same people that I love. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And Trish and
Well,
Rebecca,
it's
I'm
such a
so proud
small
of them and
community.
all they're doing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So and
Mhm.
I love like there's a real strength, a real strong female voice in all the projects that
Mm.
they're doing, and it's
Yeah,
so important. So I
totally.
just love to
Mhm.
hear that. Yes.
Yes.
Yay. People
Yay.
I love with
Mhm.
other people I love. I love it.
Uh, I totally agree, and I think it's such an interesting thing because you said at the beginning about how, we as actors can lose our why and can lose our motivation, and there's kind of this, like, competitive feeling sometimes in this industry, and, coming from medical school, where it was so competitive, I'm like, "This entertainment industry is delightful." Like, everyone is so
No one ever
nice.
says that.
It's just comparison. I mean,
Perspective, right?
of course there's gonna be competition and nasty people, but I think especially in a small community like Toronto, as soon as you start the competitiveness, it just doesn't work. We are a tiny industry. The only way we build and get clout in this world is if we all work together and support each other. When one of us shines, we all shine, says Moira Rose. But
100%.
like in Toronto especially, we have to. Otherwise, we just won't get the clout that we so desperately deserve, right? As a Toronto industry.
It's true. It's
Mhm.
true. And so few people think of that in terms of like the larger picture and the
Mm.
community and who we're supporting. So that's amazing. What has been the biggest hurdle with your podcast? What has been one of the
Ooh.
hardest things to manage?
Probably time. And I mean, it takes a lot of time to do. And I'd been warned by everyone who has a podcast that it takes so much more time than you ever anticipate. I'm like, no, it's fine. But it takes so much more time than I ever thought. And I'm a pretty picky person. I've I've relaxed since my first few episodes where I was getting rid of I do all my own editing because I enjoy it, right? Um, I was getting rid of every and trying to edit it as like precise as possible. And then I realized that this is just so stupid. I just love genuine conversation. Just relax and let the conversation flow and don't edit it. People love to hear that authenticity. And so it still does take a lot of time. So again, I still have a medical practice. Still trying to simultaneously pursue a career in acting. So that, infinite resource time is I think the biggest hurdle. I think the biggest and I think the first learning of the thing of podcasting was a big hurdle at the very beginning. How do I do this? But again, the internet.
Yeah.
Everyone else is trying to start a podcast. Yeah, look it up online.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
talk to people who have podcasts too. So I talked to a ton of people and they were all just thrilled to get me started. So yeah, but I think time is the biggest thing. I feel sometimes I don't have enough time to
Well,
spend
you
on
are
what I love.
very methodical and you're
Yes.
very organized. I mean,
Mhm.
the clips that you come out with, the graphics that you have, the amount of research you do into each of your interviewees, you're really quite a force to be reckoned with.
Thank you.
And it's exciting to see. And I appreciate when I see your things pop up on Instagram or whatever I happen to be scrolling past. You are always there's such a clean branding, and it's just like as soon as I see, I immediately know that, oh, that's Janet. Oh, that's second act actors. I just,
Yay.
it's so fantastic.
Thank you.
What's next for you? Where do you see this going in the future? What do you hope to
Mm.
accomplish with it?
That's a good question, and I
What
think
are
it
your
changes.
goals, young
What are
lady?
my dreams? I could have been a contender. It's funny. I think I go through spurts where I say, "Oh, I should monetize this," because everyone's asking me that, right? I should. Well, how much money are you making with your podcast? I'm like, negative. I'm hemorrhaging money, but again, it's a hobby that I enjoy. I'm just enjoying um I batch record, so I record in big clumps of people during my kind of slower time. So this is a busier time for acting, so I'm not recording as much. So I'm just doing a lot of editing. But as of right now, I just released episode 75, but I have already recorded episodes up until the end of January 2024. So I've got them all recorded. Yeah. Yeah.
Holy
So I'm
cow.
so excited. Like some incredible people are coming up. And that'll also hit episode 100 will be in December, which I'm hoping to have a party to celebrate that. Yeah, I think it's just trying to find again just trying to find people who are interesting and fun who want to chat with me, and we'll kind of see what happens with the podcast. I mean, no big lofty goals, but I did have a goal a goal of mine is to do a live podcast, like interview somebody live at like an acting conference or something like that. I kind of got halfway to my goal recently at the ACE conference, where I got to talk about podcasting live in front of a bunch of people, which is really cool. But I'm hoping in the future, I've got a couple guests in mind and a couple conferences in mind to do a live sit down interview, which I think would be really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
totally should. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh.
Yeah.
That would be incredible. We gotta get you backstage at the Tonys or something. Holy cow.
That would be great. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me make a phone
Anytime. Call me up. Talk to my agent.
I love it. I love it. And who is your agency?
My agent is the phenomenal Maya Ritter at Ritter Talent Agency, who
And
had
I'm
a great episode on my podcast. She's
yes.
such a gem. Hmm.
Yes, and I love them too. I really appreciate the dedication that they have. They actually watch the tapes before they just submit them, and
Yep.
I've had them sent. Jackie and Maya have sent back, critiques saying, "Let's redo this. Let's look at this part. I
Hmm.
like the way they did this, but can you work with them on that?" And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't look at the tape, critique it, give you some feedback, and give you the opportunity to make some adjustments
Hmm.
before the final submission.
Yeah.
That sort of attention to detail, I think, is so important and
Oh,
so incredible. So yay.
totally.
uh,
Yay. I
More
love
favorites
them.
of mine from the industry. I love it.
Ah,
No wonder we get along. We have the same little circle.
same little circle of just wonderful people who support each other.
But all joking aside, it's one of the things I think is important for an actor. You have to have your, whatever you want to call it, your tribe, your support circle, your friends, your network. But you have to have that. People always talk about, well, what's your safety net? What's your safety net? My safety net are my people,
Mm.
not a job, not a thing, not a bank account. My safety net is family and friends that believe in support. And I think
Mhm.
and I tell it to parents that are starting out all the time. It's really important to have aunts, uncles, neighbors, whatever you need to do to make sure that you can get this thing done with all the
Mhm.
changes that are happening. How are you finding doing online auditions and self tapes so much as opposed to doing live in person?
I have no experience doing in-person film and TV auditions because I started auditioning during the pandemic. So I've only had film and TV self-tape auditions. I've had theater in person,
Mm-hmm.
which was really cool. But so for me, and I'm also not in Toronto, I'm about 2 hours north on a good day with no traffic. So I very much appreciate self-tapes. I don't mind them at all. I kind of hope we stay with self-tapes. I know everyone's going to be like, "What?" But yeah, just because of where I live, geographical location says please stay with self-tapes. But the theater auditions that I've had that have been in person, and like the acting classes that I've had that have been in person, have been that eye opener to like, oh, looking a real person in the eyes, not just looking a real person in the eyes through a screen.
Yes.
I definitely noticed a difference. And like when my reader is a real person in the flesh as opposed to through a screen. But I don't mind the self tapes. I've got it. I've got like my little setup.
I
I'm
gotta tell
good.
you,
I
I
love
don't
it.
mind them either. I feel for so many parents and adults that, had to drive an hour and a half
Oh,
to come in for a 5-minute audition and then go back. And I also think I'm a big environmentalist. I love
yeah.
nature, and I just think about like what that is saving in terms of
Ugh,
emissions of sitting on the freeway for an hour and a half during, and usually it's like it's right after school, so parents are sitting there, it's rush hour, and then paying for parking. It's expensive to do it the other way.
yep.
I know people
It's
say it's expensive to
yeah.
buy the lighting and all that stuff, but imagine the parking, the driving, the gas. Oh my
Mhm.
God, gas. Like,
Yeah.
holy cow. So I'm with you. I'm all for it as well. It's interesting that that you started during the pandemic, as so many people did.
Mhm.
And it's I have to say I agree, and I do like being able to retake and do as many takes as we need to get that one shot that
Mhm.
really shows what the actor is capable of.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it too, personally.
Yeah.
But uh, there are a few of my actors who I feel like if they got in the room, they could just charm
Yes.
casting, and and it
Oh,
just doesn't come across in the self tape. So
yeah.
for those handful, I'm like, oh, but I also feel like the Zoom recalls and things like that. There's a few people I have noticed are really fantastic at running those sessions
Oh,
and
yeah.
making you feel comfortable and letting your personality shine and kind of bringing out that performance level. So
Mhm.
I just want to encourage everyone who's listening that those Zoom callbacks and things like that, they still work. And I'm seeing great projects being cast.
Mhm.
We've just learned a new way. We've evolved in some ways. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited for it too.
I agree with you. I think it's funny when I was applying to medical school, I remember thinking to myself, if I can just get to the interview stage, I'm in. I'm
Mhm.
in. I just got to like get through the stats where they show like, oh, your grades are good enough, your test scores are good enough. I'm like, just get me to the interview and I'll charm them. Exactly what
Yeah,
you're saying, right? I'm like, just get me. If I was in the room, I'd just charm them.
yeah,
But
and
I
there
love
are
tapes.
there's some actors who have made their way, not necessarily from being the best actor in the room, but from being the best interviewer, the best auditioner, not the best actor, the best auditioner.
Mhm. Yeah.
They know how to work the room. They know how to put people at ease. They know how to win people over, and it's a different kind of energy.
And I think that makes people realize, oh, they'd be good to work with on set, right? Like if
Mhm,
that's your energy in a high stakes situation, like an audition,
mhm.
then that's just going to be transferable, I would assume,
Yeah,
on set. Mhm.
absolutely, absolutely. What's been the hardest thing for you to master and learn in your self-tapes?
Mm. I think a big thing for me was only giving myself, I've said this year, a maximum of 3 takes to get it because I am so like word perfect is such a thing that stays in my head, and if I get one little number wrong, if I'm reciting like the decimals of pi for some sci-fi show, I'll be like, no, again, next take. And so it's just trying to get rid of that feeling of I need to be word perfect and just do the story and just act and just do the acting thing. And so my challenge for myself this year is to tape, and you get a maximum of 3 takes to do it and just relax and get into it. Um, the other thing that the hardest thing for me, I think, is I'm a really expressive person when I talk. I use my hands a lot. I always have been. I've got huge eyes and I move around a lot. Always been that way. And the shift to film and television, to really kind of ground and keep my feet planted and not move and not
Mhm.
blink 50 million times, has been really, really difficult to do. And it's something that I'm really working on. And yes, that's been a challenge for me, is just watching tapes back and recognizing, oh my God, like I'm trying so much to storytell with my body and with my hands, where for film and TV, it's like, no, storytell with just here. So that's been tricky, I think, with self tapes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad you said that, because I think that's been a huge thing for a lot of people.
Mm.
So many actors come in and they try to, oh, I'm acting now, I'm going to be big. It's like, no, you need to pull back, and, just the camera exaggerates everything. They always talk
Mm.
about the camera adds 10 pounds, but it really acts as a magnifying glass. And
Mhm.
I feel like anything that you do when you're on camera, it just magnifies whatever it is, whether it's a facial expression, a vocal inflection, whatever it is. Everything in TV and film just acts as a magnifying glass. So I
Totally.
agree. I think it's one of the hardest things to understand.
Mm.
And um, it's interesting working with actors who don't want to look at their own work.
Mm.
How are you going to know what you're doing and how to get better?
Yeah.
And so I've really been pushing actors in forcing them to watch their own work so that they can see the difference between one take and another, and
Mm.
just minor adjustments. Not huge adjustments, making those minor adjustments can make a
Mm.
huge difference.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's hard to watch yourself, and I definitely had that when I first started. I mean, I still have it now, where I would just sit and just be so awkward watching myself.
Uh-huh.
I hate this, and I would try and avoid it, right? I just like, press play. But but again, it's the thinking of it like I'm a scientist, right? Like, watch this, watch it back and see how you're improving over time and see what you need to change. And yeah, and it's always so funny when you're watching yourself back or you've done a take and you're like, yeah, I really was mad. And then you watch it take back and you're like, I my face looks dead. Like I don't like it's just such a weird. So I think there has to be that. Yeah, sure, it's all about feeling the feels and the emotions and in your brain, blah blah. But there has to be, I think, a bit of awareness about what's going on with your face, and that was a big struggle for me. And I've spoken about this at length on my podcast, and that I can make my face look completely different than what is going on in my brain because of my medical training. Because that's extremely important, right? When you're delivering bad news to patients, when you're telling them something, you can't be sobbing, even though your brain says sob, right? It's this idea of emotional restraint, right? So show the mask, be the who, so you can distance yourself from the like emotional turmoil that's going on because you got 8 hours of a shift left.
Yeah.
um yeah, so that's been a really fun thing to unlearn, but a
Hmm.
real tough thing to unlearn when I'm like, I'm feeling so sad, yeah, and then I look back at the tape, I'm like, nope, there's Dr. McMordie being sad. Crap.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So you've interviewed so many people. You have to have some good stories about What's been the funniest or weirdest thing that's happened in a podcast?
Oh my gosh. Probably my favorite things are when pets come in. And it's funny, I'm thinking of this because I don't know if you can hear my cat meowing.
No.
He's just going meow, meow, meow at my door. Whenever I'm podcasting, he's like, oh, fun. Ooh, people. Ooh. So when people's pets come in, like I had like Jesse Griffiths, I interviewed him. He's got 2 dogs and they just came like bleep, 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 like right in front. He's like, oh, hey, and like brings them in. Like it's just, I love when that happens. Or there was Amelia Copeland. She's like a neuroscientist turned actor. She's from the UK. She was like in her dorm room in like Oxford University in the UK or whatever, some fancy place. And they're like, we're chatting about some very emotional thing. And she suddenly just goes, ah! And like 10 birds just landed on her windowsill and were staring at her.
Oh
and she was like, oh my God, there's a massive quantity of birds staring at me.
I hope she turned the camera so you can get
it. Oh yeah. It's just a riot. So yeah, animal stuff. But my backdrop falls on me all the time because I was like, wow, you have such a professional setup. I'm like, well, if I turn my camera around, you'll see my guest room. It's currently 85 degrees in here.
Yeah.
And I have a backdrop that I'm holding up with my shoulder blade. But yeah, but I think the funniest things are when are animals because it's just a delight. They're like, you can edit this out. I'm like, I will not. This is delightful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Have you had anything where it was a difficult interview?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, I wouldn't say there's never been an like antagonism with it because I think
you're not Jon Stewart.
I think that's the difference, right? Totally between podcasting and a TV interview where you're in a time crunch and it's interviewer, interviewee, and there's this feeling that the interviewer wants to be like, gotcha. Right? Yeah. Aha, right? Caught you in a lie or whatever. So there's always this little kind of tiff between where a podcast, it should be, at least in my mind, a comfy conversation in our living rooms where the audience feels like we're sitting there in our living rooms. And I'm open to hearing what you have to say, even if I disagree with it, but we're going to have an open and respectful conversation because we're both adults and I'm not trying to trap you in anything. Because there's time, right? You have time to emote and to chat and to disagree and to debate. And yeah, but I've definitely had people where, my vibe is very conversational and they are very, here's the answer to the question. And you're like, oh, okay. Here's my next question, right? And so it's very like question 1, question 2, question 3. It's very rare, but I think it's people who are so used to that interview, ask question, interviewee, answer question format, where I'd say most actors are very comfortable with conversation. Like I'm not just going to ask the questions that I gave you before. If you give me some cool nugget of information, I'm going to bounce off that and get you to elaborate. So I've never had a really bad one. There've been a couple, and I obviously won't name names, but where it's just a very interesting kind of stream of consciousness that comes out of people's mouths. You're like, this is really fascinating. I didn't say a single word. And then for an hour, and you're like,
wait, I'm thinking back to mine.
No, it's not. But again, that's who some people are. I have patience like that where you're like, I haven't said anything in half an hour and you have not taken a breath. It'd be interesting to live in your head.
Right?
Human beings are so interesting.
So Jenna, I have a lot of adult actors. I'm known for working with kids a lot, but I have a lot of adult actors that are starting to come to me. I've had over 400 reach out in the past like 2 weeks, which is amazing.
Yes.
But kind of in preparation, I'm about to do a big kind of workshop with them and that sort of thing. One of the things I really would value from you is what advice do you have for an adult who is looking to either come back to this from maybe, they did it when they were younger and then they, went to their real world and then came back to the world of acting, or people who always wanted to, never had the opportunity or the resources or the ability or the time. And now they do. What advice do you have for an adult who is looking to maybe explore getting into this?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice I would give, and it's one I hear all the time because I ask that question on my podcast too, because it's my favorite question, is to just take a class. Because I think so many people don't know what they want. They know they want acting, or they know they want change from my career. They want creativity. They want community of creative people. Okay, so where do we find that? And I think that's in acting classes. I think that's training, just taking a beginner class, learning about, you know, how to analyze a script, how to act for film and TV, try improv, just
Mhm.
try things that sound interesting. And if you don't like it, who cares, right? Find something else,
Yeah.
right? I think it's the keeping the learning of the thing going, and like you were saying, finding your why, but I don't think you need to have the why right away. I think it's all about finding a community of people, finding a class that you love, something that you look forward to, and
Yes.
also realizing that you don't need to make this your job. It can be whatever you want it to be. I think I've talked to so many actors who come at this later in life and want different things out of it. From
Mhm.
the people who said, I just want to act in community theater plays for the rest of my days. I don't want to monetize acting. I just want to enjoy community theater. And, when you ask them, did you ever want to do film and TV? No, I just want community theater. Love it.
Yeah.
People simultaneously doing it like me, enjoying both parts of this world. People who are like, nope, quitting my job, I'm going whole hog into it. Absolutely. But I think it starts with finding a good acting class, because that's where you're going to find your community, because we don't have that community, right? We didn't go to theater school.
Mhm.
I think so. It's finding those people. Um, that would be my number one thing to get started. And I think that is where the snowball starts rolling down and you can gain momentum in whatever direction you want to go. Because I think there's so many ways to bring acting or creativity into your life. It doesn't have to be, I want to be a super mega star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Janet, I got to tell you, speaking of class, you bring so much class to this industry. So thank you
Oh,
so much for being here.
thank you.
That's our time for today. I sound like a therapist.
Yeah. But we didn't delve into the relationship with my father.
Janet, seriously though, I want to thank you for your time, your energy, and what you're doing for others because um, you really reached me. Your podcast reached me at a time when I was really looking to make sure that I was connected with genuine people. And you are just one of the most wonderful lights in the industry, helping guide the way for actors that are either new or coming back to it. And what an honor to have you on our wee little podcast. So I got to tell you, you are just, you're a treasure. And thank you so
Oh,
much for your energy and what you do for others.
thank you. It was such a pleasure hanging out with you. I love your vibe. I love everything about it. I'm so thrilled that we've got to virtually meet, and it's just the pleasure
Yes,
is
and
all mine.
I'm sorry I missed you at the ASA conference, but we have got to find a way to connect soon.
Oh my gosh. My
All
favorite
right?
thing in the world is meeting people in real life that I've met online. That would be
Absolutely.
such a thrill.
Absolutely. Well, send us the link that we can share for your theater gig. Want to make
Yes.
sure, and who knows, maybe I'll be there. I'll pop
Oh,
in. You just never know. All
that'd be
right.
amazing. Okay.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here for another Act with Purpose podcast. And Janet, thank you for sharing your purpose and encouraging people to help find theirs. What a joy to talk to you today. Best of
Oh,
luck.
thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye for now.
Perfect.
We did it.